One of the biggest lessons that I've learned since becoming an author and talking to others who want to is that it's not the writing that stops most people from writing the memoir. It's the consequences of telling their story, telling the truth. Because the moment you decide to write your story, you are inevitably not just writing about yourself. You are inevitably writing about other people, real people, with names and relationships and livelihoods and their own version of what happened in most cases. And then suddenly, this very deeply personal act of writing becomes ethical. And that's where I discovered this paradox that exists in the act of writing a memoir, which is that, as writers, you are quite powerful. You decide what's included, what's left out, and what meaning you make of it. But at the exact same time, you have almost no control over how it's revealed, who feels exposed, and what shifts might occur in your life once that story is out there. And when I was writing my own memoir, I felt this very acutely. Um, I knew that I was giving voice to a child who had been silenced in the writing of my memoir, but I was also very aware that the truth, if handled carelessly, can essentially become a weapon. But still, yet I had what was stronger than my fear about any consequences was my conviction that this story had to be told. So what changed for me wasn't getting rid of the fear. It was more about developing a personal code of ethics as I proceeded. So it became this compass that I could return to. And because when you know that you're in integrity, it's not that the fear disappears, but it holds less power over you. It has less authority, and it's not driving the journey of telling your story. So here's how I think about it now, and there are two sides to this. So when you're writing a memoir, you are writing from the place of perspective. You're not writing from the part of you that still has anything to prove or that wants to expose or that wants revenge. You are writing from the part of you that has understanding about your story. And because you control the narrative, the greatest responsibility that you have at this stage is how you handle others on the page. And the other side of it is to be honest about your power. Every story is told from a position. And even if you're writing about a time when you were powerless, if you were powerless then, you have power now. You're not powerless now because you're the writer. So ask yourself about questions about the people that you may want to include in the story. Questions like, why does this person belong in my story? And really examine your motivations that are driving you in including anyone in the narrative. And I just wanted to say that if you are carrying a story that feels too risky to tell or you don't know how to handle it because of the potential consequences in the aftermath, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell the story or that there's anything wrong with telling the story. But this is the place where many writers stop, and it doesn't have to. And that's why I created this offering before the aftermath, which is a masterclass that I held a few weeks ago. When I realized that the writing of the story is only part of the journey of telling your story, putting a memoir out there. What happens afterwards, emotionally, relationally, ethically, is the part that most people are unprepared for. So I created this offering, and I have a recording of this masterclass where I walk you through the ethical frameworks of writing about real people, how to protect yourself and others, and what actually happens when a story enters the world, and how to prepare from the ripple effects. And I do it all from the framework of my own personal experience with this. So if this is a question that's been holding you back, um, you can access the recording in the link that I'm putting below. And remember that your story matters, but the way you tell it matters just as much.